Yes, well, here we are. Diary. It's been a long time since I've done a diary, so I'm definitely going to enjoy this. I've been doing other things, actually, doing my podcasts, and I've done about 70 podcasts now, plus about 10 or 11 videos. And yeah, I'm very pleased. And I've now realized, after having done all these, why it is that I do it. And the answer, quite simply, is because I enjoy doing it. Oh, I'm sure you're all very let down by that, if you're listening. Anyway, um, yeah, it's because I enjoy doing it. It's like people say, why do you play? Why do you do anything? I mean, I don't say to you, why do you play tennis? I know you play tennis because you enjoy doing it, and that's the same reason that I do this. And I've done this project on recording my memoirs and doing my thoughts and doing this diary even. It's just because I enjoy doing it. I've realized it's not because I want a mass audience. And of course, that's just a coincidence that I, I've realized that I'm not going to get a mass audience. And I don't want a mass audience. Who would want to listen to all this unless they really knew me? So I do, some of my friends read it, not very many of them. Some of my friends listen to them, not very many of them. But yeah, the main reason is I enjoy doing it. So there. Anyway, I haven't done diary for a very long time, so here we go. Let's start off with Sam Harris. Now, Sam Harris is one of my favorite. What would you call him? There isn't a word for him. He's on YouTube. I don't know. It has a kind of a derogatory tone. That he's actually a well-known philosopher, modern day philosopher, and he's also a neurologist. But he's also a great friend of my other hero, who was Christopher Hitchens. So Sam Harris recently said, I think it was recent anyway, that everything we do, it's quite profound, this actually, everything we do is designed to alter our consciousness. Now, it's quite a short sentence, but it's very, very profound. So everything we do, including, what I'm doing now, I'm doing this diary because I want to alter my consciousness. In other words, I'm bored and I want to do something that makes me feel happy and gives me, dopamine hit or whatever you want to call it. So everything we do. So eating, sleeping, um, well, maybe not sleeping, but eating, drinking, uh, going to a football game, going to work even for something. Everything we do is designed to alter our consciousness. It's quite a profound comment, really. And yeah, so talking about altering people's consciousness, an incident happened just a few days ago in where I teach. Yeah, I teach as a volunteer, and in this place where I teach as a volunteer, it's a volunteer program. We tutor foreign students mainly in English, and during the coffee break, the coordinator of the program had a very interesting consciousness altering uh, interlude with one of the tutors. Now, this is quite interesting. The whole interaction was interesting because the coordinator was talking about various activities that are happening this week in Adelaide, and just before she started, someone interrupted her. And of course, that in itself is an interesting comment because the Australians do that all the time. You start to speak and then they barge into your conversation. So one of the tutors did that. And then the coordinator, she responded. I don't know how, I can't think of a simile to describe it, except that she, let's say, she shot out her arm and furiously said to this person, no, 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 no. And of course, she was ignored at first because the person who, the tutor who was making the interruption, wasn't going to be deterred. And but neither was the coordinator. No, no, no. And she pointed in a most aggressive way. The whole interaction was very aggressive between two grown elderly women in front of all of us adults. There must have been about 20 of us there from all over the world. And I thought, what? And you could have heard a pin drop at the end of it, as the tension was palpable. And it was really an ugly incident, because what the coordinators, the person, tutor, should not have interrupted, but the reaction was way over the top. So the result was, yeah, unpleasantness for everyone else. Anyway, 10 minutes later, I noticed the tutor chatting away merrily to the coordinator as if absolutely nothing had happened. That is so typical of, well, I don't know if it's typical, but to me, it's brutal. Such brutal interaction between people. I don't want to react like that when people have that type of interaction. I find it absolutely horrifying. Anyway, that's the first little item on the agenda. Now, next we've got a more pleasant one. I want to talk about kangaroos, because next door to me here in the house, I have the most beautiful natural park. Now, it used to be a water reservoir owned by SA Water, and you couldn't go in there. It's a huge area. Yeah, it was prohibited to the public. But then they decided, very sensibly, to open it to the public. And it is beautiful. It is pristine. It has been preserved from the predations of suburbia. And it is honestly, it is like the kind of pristine, there's a patch, the whole area is beautiful. But there's a patch very close to actually where I live, just on that east gate there, which is absolutely beautiful. It's totally pristine. It's what's called grey box woodland, which was the original vegetation before the settlers arrived 200 years ago. Beautiful. And if you walk in this little area, you're just taken back in time to something like out of Jurassic Park. It's beautiful. And there are always kangaroos there. So that's the way I start my day. And it is the best part of the day, no doubt about it. Pristine environment. Reminds me of Africa, but actually in many ways better than Africa, because it's so much more accessible. In Africa, you'd have to drive an hour or 2 hours to find it. And then you couldn't get close to the animals because, yeah, they're hiding away from you, and some of them were quite dangerous as well. But the kangaroos, they're just always there. And oh my goodness, what a way to start the day. Yeah, so then, okay, then yesterday I went to the Writers' Week. I haven't been there for a while because of the pandemic and the visit last year of friends and so on. So yeah, I really had an interesting talk on technofeudalism from Yanis Varoufakis, who is the ex-Greek prime minister during 10 years ago, during the years of austerity. And he was a left-wing finance minister in the Greek government, destroyed by the fascist right-wing media in Europe eventually. But he was so eloquent and articulate about what technofeudalism is, and I liked it, what he said anyway. He suggests that our preferences are no longer our own when we say we want things on any social media thing. These preferences are actually manufactured and manipulated now by machine networks, commonly known as the cloud. And so, yeah, it's like ChatGPT, really. They ask you what you want, you tell it what the cloud what you want, then it comes back to you and say, what more do you want? And it gives you what you want, and then you loop back and you tell it what you want, and it keeps homing in on what you want, and eventually it then sends you other stuff which you don't want, but which you might want. So in the end, your preferences are no longer there. It's the machine's preferences, it's the cloud's preferences. And what is the consequence of all this? Well, the negative consequence is that nobody listens anymore to what's said on the media, in the mass media or even on the internet. Nobody's interested, and nobody listens to the news, and nobody reads the news, very little anyway, on the internet, because we know as humans what is fake, what's being manipulated, what's being contrived, and so that's the result. So he says democracy and capitalism are therefore dead because it depends on you having good information. And he suggests anyone who wants power in politics should be prevented from getting it. And he suggests a random selection of those in power through citizens' assemblies. Oh, what a great idea. What a hopeful idea. So good on you, Yanis. And yeah, then I left the Writers' Week and I went to pass through the Migration Museum, and I had a glass of wine there, and yeah, what did I do there? Yes, I noticed people queuing for everything. Christ, Australians are addicted to queues. They're like ants. They're not happy when they're all roaming around. They have to get into a line, whether it's to go to the toilet or ticket office or to buy a drink or food or something. Well, I'm sure it's very good. It's better than not queuing, but it seems so. Oh, I don't know. There's something about it I don't like. They feel comfortable in queues. Let's put it that way. I'm not sure that's a good thing. No. Yes, the other thing I noticed at this migration museum is this fellow started chatting to me. He was dressed up in his uniform thing. He had some act on, some historical or musical act or something. And he explained to me that he traveled around Australia doing this and was making his money with it. But it was his side job, or he had other jobs as well. So anyway, I just noticed at one point he recommended the other act, or I expressed another act, not his act, but another act. And he said, oh, yes, you should go to that. That's a very good act. That's about something or something. And I thought, well, here he is recommending an act, which, yeah, I don't think he'd ever seen it because this was a new thing. But he was doing that because of this code that people have in these fringe activities in Adelaide. So we support each other's act. So if I'm talking to you and I say I like your act, you have this obligation to recommend the other acts in the fringe festival, especially the ones that are close to you. And I can understand it, but it's just sales talk. So it completely devalues the conversation. So I don't trust this guy. I've met him because he's already recommending stuff after 30 seconds to me based on his personal preference, or on, not based on my preferences, based on him doing it because he wants to promote actually his own act, and he wants other people to promote his act. So it's all about his money. So a rather similar process to this whole thing that this Greek guy was talking about, that nothing is our own preferences anymore. People talk to you, they've always got an agenda, money, and it's their money, and it's selfish, and it's manipulation. Yes, so thanks for the chat, mate. Now, let's delete those so I don't get confused. Yeah, so kangaroos, yes. By the way, the kangaroos are just lovely. I love the way they sit and prick their ears up. They're curious. They're like human children, curious about everything, unlike human adults who are curious about almost nothing. They find myriads of ways to kill their curiosity and make them dull and boring. Yes, kangaroos are great. Now, what are we going to talk about? Oh, banks. Oh, well, I had a really unpleasant experience in the bank recently. I had some problem, yeah, with an account or something. And when I went in, I got this lovely lady, girl, Indian girl, and she obviously had no idea what the problem was. And it wasn't a major problem. It wasn't a very difficult problem, but it was a significant problem, and there was some money involved. And she just sat there. And I realized after about 3 or 4 minutes, she was just looking up, Googling what's wrong. So she had no idea. And eventually I said, what do you think? And then she got the boss, and the boss came in, and she said something, and then this girl repeated it, and then I wasn't satisfied with it at all. Anyway, what the whole point was, in the end, the boss came out, and she was busy and not interested really either, and she was wrong. She changed her point of view. So what we had here was a boss who didn't really know what she was doing and gave contradictory information. And then the young girl who was utterly clueless. So what is this bank doing, putting this young lady, perfectly charming, in front of me as a customer? Customer service, shocking, utterly shocking. Yeah, so there we are. And finally, yes, I have a grumble about book clubs. Now, I've always been interested in books, of course, but I've often been distracted by, work and family and all sorts of things. But recently, I've started reading again. And so I've been looking at a book club because I like to go and chat about the book that I've read, talk to people and get recommendations from them. So I check it out on Google, my local library. Yes, we have 5 book clubs. Go to the library, say, how's the book club? Yeah, how does it work? She says, oh, well, yeah, we all go and you join. And at the beginning of the session, you there's 10 or so in the group, and you decide on a book to read, and you all read it together. Excuse me. Well, I was absolutely appalled to hear that. Who wants to hear that? I mean, I read books, and recently I'm in the library. There are not a lot of books according to my taste, and I can't order a book until I've seen it and reviewed it. That's difficult to do online, I suppose, although maybe it can be done, but it's a bit of work. Anyway, I like going to bookshops and browsing. So I went there and yeah. So yeah, I You go to the bookshops, and they're very expensive. They're $35 each. Anyway, I have to make sure that the book is worth the money and that I'm going to enjoy it. So I go and I find. Usually I can do it. I pick a book, but it's a tricky process. You look at the book cover and it's all very attractive, but inside it can be very disappointing. You look at the reviews, you read the blurb in the back, you leaf through it, you try to get an idea whether I'll enjoy it or not. But sometimes I fail, and I have a couple of books and I kind of regret having bought them because I really couldn't finish them recently. Now, I don't want to go to a book club. Therefore, if I can't finish my own books, my own choice, I'm certainly not going to be able to finish a book which other people have recommended to me. What a stupid idea! And it just seems to me that, I don't know. Anyway, unbelievable. So I Googled and re-Googled and found, oh yes, there are a couple of book clubs, and far away that where people just read their own book and then bring it and chat about it. So I've been to one in Noarlunga recently, and I went along, and yeah, it was a quite okay session. But of course, they're all elderly, mostly females, but elderly people, and uh, my interests, are very different. All my interests are in overseas and migration and that sort of thing. And they're not. They're mostly all white people, of course. They're all locals, and they just want to read all the latest white authors, basically. So, yeah, but it was interesting, and I did think though that sometimes I have a problem there because I don't have a great memory for details, whereas a lot of these people do. So they can remember in great detail the plot of their book and so on. So they start off and they say when and where and the setting and who the characters are and what happens. Oh, well, I can't do that. I just have a general impression. But anyway, quite interesting. Book clubs. I'll go back again. Yeah, so, well, that's it, I think, for this time. My moaning is over. Most of it was moaning, I do admit.